Hi, my name is DeJager, and we're going to be talking about Adventure Racing Core. These are some adventure racing activities you can use in your physical education classes. So let's start off with what adventure racing is. What is adventure racing? Well, I started adventure racing probably about 20 years ago with a group of friends of mine, and this is the adventure racing that we did. You're going to be out there, you're going to be out on a course, you're going to be running, you're going to be kayaking, you're going to be mountain biking, you're going to be navigating, you're going to be doing special challenges. So there's usually some kind of running involved where you're navigating to find some kind of a checkpoint. Usually some kayaking involved where obviously oftentimes you're looking for a checkpoint as well, or trying to get from one side of the lake to the other or wherever you are. Mountain biking, same thing, trying to find some checkpoints. Sometimes there's rappelling. Oftentimes there's other special challenges. You never really know what's going to happen in an adventure race. These adventure races, they can happen in rural settings. They can happen in the woods, in the mountains, near the ocean. Or they can happen in urban settings. So in the city, we have, looks like San Francisco right here. I've done a few adventure races in San Francisco. So yes, they can happen in the city as well. Either way, you are racing in a group. You are racing in a team of usually 2 to 5 individuals. And these races will last a few hours to several days, so they can get quite long. But again, racing in a group, all these disciplines coming together, that is traditional adventure racing, putting them all together and trying to complete a course within the time limits. So some races you may have heard of. Back in the day, there was this race called the Eco Challenge. Now, the Eco Challenge was developed by a guy named Mark Burnett. Mark Burnett was from the UK, came over to the United States. He was actually a nanny out in Hollywood, and he wanted to get into the business of making television and stuff like that. So he did. He started off with an adventure race called the Eco Challenge. Now, in the Eco Challenge, he had groups of folks that he put together, and they usually had some kind of theme to them, and they had to make it through this adventure racing course, and it lasted for quite a while. It was like a several days long event. That's Mark Burnett, 1995. Now you think maybe you've heard that name before, because you have. Mark Burnett was the first producer of Survivor and later on other shows like The Apprentice and others. So Mark Burnett, believe it or not, got his start with adventure racing. Okay, that's where he started. So the Raid, Gerard Fusel, 1989. Gerard Fusel is considered the godfather of adventure racing. Kind of started it off. The Raid was another long endurance event. Same with Subaru Primal Quest. Subaru Primal Quest was days and days long. My former adventure racing team actually went on to complete the Subaru Primal Quest, and it took them 9 days. So not an easy task. Definitely a major investment in time and resources, right? And money. Very expensive event to do when you think about flying out there, driving out wherever the race is going to be, all the equipment you're going to need, all the time you're going to have to put into getting ready for that race. And that's one thing that really, as an adventure racer, as a former adventure racer doing it quite a bit, is you spent a lot of time during the week practicing. You spent every weekend you were doing some kind of major endurance event, because you have to be able to go a long distance in order to be able to go a long distance on race day. And so you go out and you go on these long runs, these long bike rides, you go out paddling for quite a while, you combine the two, you do some navigation. Big investment in time, also money. We were pretty young. I just graduated college. My friends were still in college. And so we didn't have money for a lot of fancy equipment. So we were the Ghetto Squad. That was our team name. And we had bike lights that were handmade. We had the heaviest bikes out there. Kayaks weren't the best quality. Our packs weren't the best. We definitely we didn't have some of the setup that some of the other teams did. And that was really the big drawback with adventure racing in that style. Nowadays, adventure racing looks a little different. Tough Mudder, you've probably heard of that one. Jumping off of things and going under barbed wire and stuff like that. Rugged Maniac is another one. Spartan Race. The Spartan Race is an awesome adventure race you can do, where you get to do all kinds of cool events. Again, the focus is on the obstacles, challenging yourself But one thing I like about the Spartan race is there's an out too. So you have some options there. But all of these, when you look at these events, these adventure races, now we don't have that kayak, we don't have that bike, we don't have those other pieces in there, and they're much shorter. They're not several days long. They're a couple of hours long or several hours long, right? So a very different approach to adventure racing. That is what we're seeing more now, but the core ideas are there. Special challenges, it's not just running. Special challenges and then supporting each other. If we look at these, there's always support with each other during the race. Even if you're not racing in a group, as racers together through the course, you're working together as a group. So, who does adventure racing? Well, several different folks can do adventure racing. We have runners. Runners can obviously do adventure racing, right? If you're gonna do the longer stuff, maybe you're an ultra runner. Shorter stuff, maybe not so much. But running, for sure. Mountain biking, yeah, why not? They could do adventure racing. CrossFitters, fitness enthusiasts, yep, for sure. And that's been a big draw for the new style of adventure racing here. Friends can do adventure racing with each other. Family can do adventure racing with each other. Kids can do adventure racing too. Okay, so we have a little Spartan kids race right here, right? Anyone can do adventure racing, and it's a lot more accessible now than it used to be. So here's a question for you to consider. Let's think about this for a few seconds here. What do you think adventure racing would look like in physical education? Well, it would look like adventure racing core. Getting down to the core components of adventure racing, what makes it great for adults like myself when we go out and do it, and so many others. It's a cooperative obstacle racing experience. This is what we can bring to our physical education students. A cooperative obstacle racing experience to get to the core ideas of adventure racing. An event, a lesson format that focuses on teamwork and acceptance, accepting one another, using teamwork like you would in a real race. Cooperation, communication, working together as a team, communicating to each other to figure out what's going to happen next. Responsibility, taking your role, what are you responsible for, and doing it and following through. Fitness development. It's going to take fitness to complete a real life adventure race, and you're going to develop fitness elements in an adventure race in the classroom as well. Problem solving and concept learning. Those opportunities are there. And then skill development, another way you can approach it. There are also many variations of races you can use. So let's take a look at what an adventure race would look like in a physical education class. So thank you to my friends at Spark for letting us show this. All right, so this is me at my former middle school, actually running an adventure race right here. The first thing you're going to do is explain that we're going to be doing an adventure race, what the goal is for the day. And to get everyone started, you're going to start picking your judges. So you're going to find officials for each of your racing stations. So the adventure race is actually going to have stations that the racers are going to stop at along the way, and they're going to have to complete challenges before they can move on with the race. The first thing you'll do as a teacher is you're going to actually pick those judges and who they're going to be right off the top. We'll talk a little bit later about how you pick those judges and who they might be, but that's the first thing you'll want to do, because the rest of the class, you're going to get them into groups. When you get them into teams, they'll be in groups of 3 or 4, whatever you've decided as a teacher. Oftentimes, I'll have them get into groups several times. This is just a grouping strategy I'm using right here. And they don't know when I'm going to stop. And that's going to make those groups a little bit more random there. Once they're in their teams, I'm going to distribute the task cards. The task card is going to tell the racers what the adventure race is going to be for the day. So each group's going to receive their task cards. Once they have their task cards, they're going to look at it as a team and determine what their strategy is going to be for the race. It's also going to give them an opportunity to see what events are coming up, and the questions for the race as well. So while the teams are looking at the task cards, I'm going to be meeting with the judges. So as the teacher, you are meeting with the judges, you are explaining what the stations are, and you're picking 1 or 2 judges for each of the stations. That judge's job is going to make sure that the team stops, completes the push-ups that they need to complete, or whatever obstacle it is that they need to do before they can move on with the race. So they make sure the team stop, complete the challenge, they mark off their task card, and then they can move on. Once you've explained to the judges, send them off to the stations they need to go to, then meet back with the class, review the task card, review the adventure race that they're going to do. Any questions they might have, you want to make sure you answer those questions and go over the course a bit more. The first time you do this, it's going to take a little bit longer on the explanation because they won't know what an adventure race is. After you've done a couple of them, it'll come pretty easy, and the task card will be much more self-explanatory, and you won't have to explain as much to the students. Here I'm explaining to them on the first lap, they're not going to stop and do any of the obstacles, but they will do all of the obstacles after that. So I'm checking for understanding here on how many laps they'll be doing and all that. So once they're done with the race, I'm explaining that they will either cheer on other groups, help other groups, or stretch. We head to the starting line right here. Groups are in their teams. They need to stay together in their team the entire time. You notice each group has their task card with them, 1 task card per group. You can see they're starting to do their obstacles, so this would be after lap 1. We have some different fitness obstacles here. During the race, the judges are the ones running the stations. This gives me an opportunity to move around, or you the opportunity to move around as the teacher. Judges are encouraged to be moving during the race as well. So one thing you can do is give them a pedometer. They can wear a pedometer and see how many steps they can get, so they can do some jumping jacks or jogging in place while they're at the station waiting for groups to come through. We can see right here, the judge is watching. Once they're complete, they'll go to the judge will mark them off. As a teacher, this gives you an opportunity to fix the leaks. So if there's any problems along the way, you can walk over, help the group out, and then move on. So you have a lot of opportunities to do that in adventure racing as the instructor. It takes a lot of prep, or a bit of prep, to set it up and design the race, but the races run themselves, and you can just move around. At the end of the race, you will debrief with the students any major concepts you wanted them to learn. If there was anything at the question and answer station, maybe there were some concepts there that they had to answer, so maybe review those answers a little bit. Maybe the why, we'll talk about that, but just debrief the race. Okay, so that is an example of what an adventure race would look like in a physical education class. So, what do all core adventure races have in common? First off, students have to get into teams of 2, 3, or 4. Now, how do you make these teams? It's up to you as a teacher how these teams are made. You can let the students choose the teams, and they always like that. And they might group themselves a little more per ability or whatever, or you can choose the teams for them. I have found that if you pick the teams for them, they will actually be more successful in the adventure race because there's no outside drama or anything that comes along with it. They just have that one focus of completing the race. So that is one way you can do it. It's up to you. You know, one way you can use this is in a sport ed model, sport education model. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but if you use a sport education model, it'd be a set team that you would use for all of the adventure races that you went through that adventure racing unit. Once they're in their teams, they start the race. They must stay in their teams while running through a course filled with challenges they must complete in order to finish the race. They have to stay together. In the real world of adventure racing, this is really important, right? I don't want to be out there for several hours and have all my teammates leave me out on some mountain and I don't know where I am and I don't have the map. And maybe the navigator has the map. That would be really bad. And so we're teaching students how they could possibly do an event like this outside of our physical education setting to remain physically active. And so that's an important piece. There's a real true danger side to that if you leave someone behind in a real adventure race. Now, in our classes, what it comes down to is accepting each other, encouraging each other, and supporting each other. So we really want to focus on that. And part of that is staying together in your team. So this can be a challenge for students as they're first starting out. One idea that someone who started doing this adventure racing years ago, their classes, what she did was started using a jump rope. And so all team members have to hold on to that jump rope during the race. And I recommend that you do that, especially with middle school students, upper elementary school students, because they're going to hit this race and they're just, those ones who are really gung ho are going to take off and they're going to leave their teammates behind. And that's not what we want for this. We want them to stay together. While that's hard for some to stay with their teammates who might be a little more slow, it's actually going to make everyone better and stronger as a team. And so one way you can do is have them hold on to a jump rope and they all stay together. And eventually you can get rid of the jump rope. The students who are not competing in the race, they're judges and they're going to official the various stations that are used during the race. So how do you pick your judges? It's entirely up to you how you pick your judges. I would recommend that you choose different judges every race so you're not using the same students all of the time, because it is a very different experience being a judge compared to being a team member and a racer. Now, the first time you do an adventure race, just think about this. Anytime you do a new lesson with your students, right? You put a lot of time into it, you set it up, and then every once in a while, more often than we would like, a student comes through, destroys everything we did. They kick over all the cones, they mess everything up, whatever it is. There's a good chance that can happen in an adventure race. So the first race you do, pick those students that you know might kick over all the cones, right? Might toss the equipment. Say, hey, I need judges for today's race. Will you be a judge? Will you be a judge? Will you be a judge? Come here. I need some responsible people. So make those students that might be a challenge in some other ways, right? As far as possibly potentially sabotaging your lesson in your race, have them be judges and give them that leadership role so they can learn how to lead and be responsible in that position. So kind of take that, turn it a little bit. They're getting what they need. And so next time though, they should be racing and kind of mix it up. Okay? If you're doing a sport ed model, teams can actually take turns being the judges for the race. Let's go through an example of a Spartan adventure race you can use in your classes. Now, here we have our question and answer station. This is also our starting line. And we'll get all our teams lined up here. We'll say, ready, go. And all students will run one lap around the track. They will not stop at any of these obstacles. Think about it. Why don't we stop? Well, we don't stop because we want to spread the students out, right? In real world adventure racing, we do this as well. I did one race. Well, I've done several races, but one race I did where they were like, "You're going to start with a kayak." The directors, "You're starting with a kayak. You're going to start on the lake." Okay, we're like, "Where are the kayaks?" Because we were told that the race would provide the kayaks. Oh, they're right over there. And there were the inflatable kayaks, but they were not inflated. And so we actually had to inflate our kayak before we could get in it and start that section of the race. So what did that do? That really spread us out. So rather than everyone hitting the water at the same time and bumping into each other, we were definitely spread out after that, right? The race director did that to spread us out. Done other races in urban settings where they ask a question, and then it's a multiple choice, and then you have to pick the answer. If you're correct, you start your race. If not, you wait till the next question. That prevents people from following each other, right? Same idea, spreading folks out. Same thing here. We want to spread our racers out. And so lap 1, we don't stop anywhere except at the end, we go to the question answer station. On the task card for the team, there's going to be a question for lap number 1. Students are going to have to answer that question. That question should not be true, false. It should not be multiple choice. It should be something with a clear answer. So for example, when doing push-ups, what fitness component are you improving? Now, they should hopefully say muscular strength, maybe muscular strength and endurance. If they're correct, they'll get their card stamped and then move on with the race. If they are incorrect, they're going to do this little try again lap. It's just a mini little loop that you'll make out of cones. They'll come back, they'll go all the way around, and they'll come back before they can give another answer. This prevents them from standing here and just listening to what other groups say before moving on. They have to go back, they have to do a little try again lap, come back before they can give another answer. Now, if they've done 3, so hopefully they're talking about what the answer could be before they come back and give another answer that's hopefully correct. But if they've done 3, like 2 or 3 try again laps and they're not quite getting it, you can give the judge permission beforehand to give them a clue and say, hey, the group has done this 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 try again laps, and they haven't gotten it yet, then give them a clue before they move on. Okay, the other option is this team that's not quite getting it, they can ask other team members. So one of the main rules with adventure racing, and we'll talk about this in a bit, is teams can help other teams. Judges cannot help teams. So they can't just give them the answer and just check them off and they move on. But team members can help, or teams can help other teams. And so that's one thing that can happen right here, is they can ask another team for the answer. The answer team gives it to them the answer, and then they get the answer and they move on with the race. They'll then move on to, so this is lap 2, and they'll do this on laps 2, 3, and 4. They'll move on to the burpee station. Maybe they have to do 30 burpees as a team, but they can split those burpees up however they like. So if there's 3 people on their team, they might go 10, 10, and 10. Or they might decide to go 15, 5, and 10. However they want to set it up as a team, it's up to them. If you as a teacher want to make sure that everyone does at least 1, then you could say, all right, everyone has to do a minimum of 1 burpee. Or you could say, I want to make sure everyone does 5. Everyone must do a minimum of 5 burpees. And that's one thing that the judge is looking for at that station. Okay. Me, personally, I let them completely choose how they want to split it up. Usually, it comes back around someone might know an answer that someone else didn't know, or maybe they're better at one of the other obstacles. And so it balances itself out a little bit. All right. So they split them up however they want. They complete those burpees. They then move on. The Atlas carry. Got some medicine balls right here. They're behind a line. Cones right here behind, there's another line. Grab the medicine ball, carry it past this line, bring it back to the start, hand it to a team member. That team member runs across the line, brings it back to the third team member runs across the line, brings it back, sets it back on the ground. They get their task card marked, they can move on with the race. Z-wall. These are poly spots on the ground, little rubber spots, and they must touch the spots without touching the ground, making it through the entire Z-wall station. If they do so, card stamp, move on. If they touch the ground, you could have it so if you touch the ground at any point, you have to do 10 burpees before you just move on with the race. Same thing here, you can just decide to do 10 burpees. Depends on how you want to set up your race. Right here, if they touch the ground, they got to start over. Okay. Fire jump. Jump from this line of cones to this line of cones. Can't touch the ground in between. Pretty easy. If you do, you start over. All right. We're going to do 4 laps around. Remember, lap 1, no stations. Laps 2, 3, and 4 are all of the stations. This is a Spartan adventure race that you can actually do in your physical education classes. It is based on real Spartan adventure races that you could do in the real world. So if you actually go out there, you will see an Atlas carry, Z-wall, burpees, fire jump. All that actually happens in real Spartan races as well. So to review, rules for all core adventure races. Racers must stay together as a team the entire race. This is critical. We talked about it earlier. Big focus of adventure racing is the problem solving, but it's also cooperation and the teamwork and the problem solving that it takes in order to reach goals as a team. All team members must be together when answering the questions. So one checkpoint that you can use to make sure teams are staying together is the question and answer station. So oftentimes I'll tell the judge, that they either got to be touching elbows or they got to be all standing there together as a team to make sure they're all there before they can answer the question. It's kind of a checkpoint, which as a teacher, you will probably find yourself spending some time at the question and answer station, especially in the beginning as students get used to adventure racing, because that tends to be where the holdup is a little bit, as far as teams kind of wanting to cruise through with an answer, or the judge like, I don't know, should I give them a clue or not yet, but they'll get the hang of it after a while. Racers may help their teammates as well as other teams to get through challenges during and after the race, so they can help each other out. One of the first adventure, I think it was actually the first adventure race I did, I realized that this was part of the culture of adventure racing. As we had done this, we were in the race, we could not get past the this station, this obstacle that we had, where you had to balance a bucket. It actually balance a bucket on a balance beam to move on. We couldn't figure it out, but the professionals had, and they came back on the course after they had finished, and they helped us get through that obstacle. And so that's something they did. So racers can always help other teammates. They can always help other teams get through the challenges during and after the race. And that is a real element of adventure racing that you will see, right? And there have been times we've been out on course, we're like, are we in the right spot? And so we're checking on a big map. Okay, navigating. Do you have the checkpoint here? Yeah, we have the checkpoint here. Okay, we run into each other in the woods. Hey, you got this? Yep, that's what we got. Okay, good. All right, move on. We check with each other. Judges may not help other races or help the racers. We talked about that a little bit, unless it's a clue after they've got 2 or 3 laps around the think about it loop and they're having a hard time, then you might want to give them permission to give them a clue. But other than that, they should not be just marking folks off and then having them continue the race. The only station racers complete on the first lap is the answer station. After that, all stations are completed for all of the laps. That's an important thing to keep in mind for a standard adventure race. And then other rules are specific to particular races. And so there's a lot of variations on adventure racing we can do as well. The first variation are the stations themselves. Now, when it comes down to it, adventure racing is actually a lesson format, not just another option to the mile run or another way to develop fitness. It's really a way you can build your lesson. So we can do this by reviewing movement skills in our adventure race. So for example, let's say we just finished up an ultimate frisbee unit and we wanted the students to review the skills they've learned in the ultimate frisbee unit. We could do an ultimate frisbee adventure race. And at station 1, you're standing in a triangle 10 yards away. You have to pass the disc around 3 times using a backhand throw before you can move on to the next station. And the next station is a one-handed sea catch. And everyone has to use a one-handed sea catch in order to catch the disc before you can move on to the next station. And maybe all of the questions at the question and answer station have to do with ultimate frisbee. One of the questions might be, what type of grip do you use when throwing a forehand with a disc? Let's say a peace sign grip. Okay, good, move on. That's something that you taught them. That's a cue that you taught them to use, right? So we can use adventure racing as a format to reinforce movement skills. You can go back to previous lessons and units as well too. So you could have, let's say you've taught a bunch of team sports and you've got football and soccer and ultimate. You could have a football station, an ultimate station, soccer station, all in the same race. Movement skills. Pretty easy to put into an adventure race. Gives you an opportunity to review those skills there. Fitness challenges. This is the natural fit. So when we look back at our Spartan adventure race, a lot of those were fitness challenges there. Really focusing on fitness development. Can really add in that muscular strength and endurance elements in there. If you can get it to slow down a little bit, you can even get some flexibility in there. And then obviously running around the track itself is going to build some cardiovascular endurance. Puzzles. So you can have puzzles as some of the stations during the race. Any other cooperative activities will work as well. So we think about like lava lake, radioactive river, poison yogurt, whatever you call that. whatever you call that game, where, or that activity where you have to get from one line to the other and you can't touch the ground in between, right? And you're using poly spots and hula hoops and stuff like that. Same thing here. You can make that one of your stations during the adventure race. So cooperative activities can be part of the race. Now, my only recommendation would be if you're going to use cooperative activities in your adventure race, to not do too many in one adventure race. And then when you do have one, put it towards the end of the lap. Put it towards the end of the lap. That way, students will have actually gone, the races will have actually gone one full loop and then most of a second lap before they hit that station. That means they're going to be more spread out because cooperative activities tend to take a little bit more time. You'll want them more spread out so they don't, and they also tend to take a lot of equipment so they don't get backed up too much. So the other thing you can do is put a time limit on the cooperative activity. If you don't complete so much time, you're just done, you move on. And that would be something that the judge would do, or you would have a second judge keeping time, okay, helping them out. So awesome little place to put those in since we're focused on the cooperative piece anyway. You can have the cooperative activities in there, but some things you want to keep in mind. Bigger loops. So you can have students go, if you have a half-mile loop, a three-quarter-mile loop, a 1 mile loop, you can use that. Use that as an adventure race. Just have more stations. Just don't, make sure you're, at least 0.2 miles in, or it's at least the first station is pretty fast so that they're more spread out before they get to that first station. But after that, put in 7 or 8 stations if you want. Depends on what you have there. So now your emphasis is more on different kinds of stations, and your run is just a little different. Multiple stations in any order. So this is where we run where you stand in the middle of the field and you have your stations far out, where you're in the blacktop and you have a very big physical education area. You can send them out to different areas. So I did one where they actually had to head out and they had to find different stations. I had different stations and signs hidden throughout. They can kind of see them on a white piece of paper. And when they got there, they had to do some exercises. They had to read an article about different fitness components or read a little bit on them. And then they had to actually answer a question before they can move on. They get it checked off at that station. And then when they got all of them checked off, they would be done with the race. Now, multiple stations in any order also works on a rainy day inside a gym. Say you're stuck inside, you can actually make this work as well. You would just have longer stations. So all of your stations have to be much bigger and deeper. So you might have like a word search that's going to take them 10 minutes, or a crossword that's going to take them 10 minutes, where they have to define some terms or think about some things a little bit. You might have another station where they have to actually complete a series of fitness exercises, and it's a long series. Right? Maybe it's 100 push-ups and 300 jumping jacks and 200 curl-ups, and it's a pretty deep thing. And then there's another station where they actually have to put together like a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle. You have to do all these things before you can come back to the middle and complete the race. So that has a possibility as well. This is also one that might work in our current situation with a shelter in place. You could probably do this remotely, getting students into teams beforehand, and then they talk about which obstacles they want to complete, how they're going to complete them, who's going to do what as part of that. So who's going to do this many repetitions of this exercise, who's going to do this many repetitions of that. They put them together, and they'll all be on your screen there kind of doing it on their own. And it's a little hard to manage, but I think it's possible. I think it's doable. So that might be a way that we can do it remotely, do an adventure race remotely, is by doing this multiple stations in any order kind of system. Poker style. Now, this is my favorite adventure race format. So with this, you've got 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you put a time limit on it, and the students do as many laps as they can in the time limit. Twice per lap, they're getting a playing card. So once at the starting line, once halfway around, they get a playing card. They collect as many playing cards as they can during the race. The more laps they do, the more cards they get. And at the end of the race, whoever has the best poker hand wins. So the more cards you have, the better chance you have of winning. But anyone can still win, because there's definitely a little bit of luck element in here as well. Now, poker rankings can be pretty challenging, especially for younger students. So our upper elementary students, our middle school students, we want to be using maybe something like a flush, or whoever has the biggest flush, or whoever has the most cards of the same color, or whoever has the longest straight. Right? Those are some things that you can do there. Now, one of the other big reasons I like the poker style race is it gives me an opportunity as a teacher to really reinforce those behaviors I want to see. So if there's a group that's really doing a great job of staying together, hey, I noticed you stayed together the entire race, fantastic job, here's 2 extra cards. Hey, I love how you've been encouraging each other. I saw that high five back there, that was awesome. Here's another card. Well, maybe not high five, we're not allowed to high five anymore. But hey, I heard you said nice job, nice job. Nice job to your teammates. You've been encouraging them the whole time. Here's some more cards. Now, students can get a little tricky. They can try trading cards from other teams, okay? Trying to make their hands better. If you're okay with that, with that as a teacher, go for it, okay? If you don't want that to be part of the race, then eliminate it. Say you're not allowed to trade cards. Now, you can try to catch them if you think they're going to do it anyway. The way you do that is make one of the cards that they get at one of the stations have a red back, and the other station has a blue back. Don't tell them you're doing this, but as teams come around, and if you're handing out 2 cards for the teams to reward them for their behaviors, 1 card should be red, 1 card should be blue. When they complete the race, every team should have half their card should be red and half their card should be blue. But if you have a team that has more blue or more red, then you know they were doing some cheating along the way there that you didn't want them to do. All right, we got to outsmart those kids sometimes. All right, dice or tokens. Maybe every lap they roll some dice, they get that many points. A lot more random there. Or maybe they're drawing into the bag, they're pulling out some different tokens, trying to get as many tokens. Whoever has the tokens, most tokens of the same color or whatever wins. Locks. My funnest race to watch. During this race, you'll set up combination locks beforehand. You hang them on a backstop. Each team has a lock on the fence that they're going to unlock at the end of the race. Here's how they're going to do it. At the end of each lap, they're going to get 1 combination for their lock. Then, once they have that combination, they're going to get 1 combination number for their lock. Once they have all 3 numbers for their combination, they'll complete that 4th lap. They'll run up to their fence, and they will try to unlock that lock as fast as they possibly can, but they don't know the order that it comes in. And so you'll have teams just scrambling, trying to figure out the order of the lock, trying to get it off the fence before the other teams catch up. Other teams see them, and they're more motivated because they can actually catch up, might actually beat them. Plus, this reinforces what we often deal with in the locker room. If you use locker rooms and locks, students always have a hard time with those combination locks. Well, now you're going to reward the ones who've been paying attention and practicing those combinations. All right, another idea, puzzle pieces with a black light. Kate Cox, awesome. District Middle School Physical Education Teacher of the Year. Awesome person, awesome presenter, came up with this idea that she's used before with her students, which is puzzle pieces. So each time students complete laps and tasks, they're getting puzzle pieces. When a team has all their puzzle pieces, they put them together, build the puzzle, and then they have a black light and it has a secret message on there, or might have a question that they have to answer. Also a fantastic thing, a fantastic variation you can do with the adventure racing format. So all core adventure races need a race director. That's you, the teacher, or multiple teachers. This actually works really well in a department. You can have 3 or 4 teachers and you can have 200 students at a time doing adventure races. This is often how we did it at my middle school and at the high school I was at as well, is we'd have all come together, we do an adventure race, the teachers were able to be at the different stations, monitor, and the students are spread out so much, it actually works out pretty well. Judges. The judges are the students. It might be you as a teacher if it's the first 1 or 2. If you're working with multiple teachers, I wouldn't do that. I'd definitely make it students with you just 1 teacher running the race. You're gonna need an adventure racing course. You're gonna need obstacles and challenges. You're gonna need the task sheets with the race directions, and you're gonna need the racers. You're gonna need the students themselves. You might also need equipment for the obstacles. I would recommend the first race you do, you have less equipment and really focus on some elements that don't take as much equipment. Just because it's one less thing to worry about. So maybe put some push-ups, some burpees, some jumping jacks in there. Just get the students used to the format. Playing cards, if you're gonna do a poker race, dice, locks, tokens, jump ropes to keep your teams together. especially in the beginning. Just depends on what race you're doing, what equipment you might need. Benefits of adventure racing core. It's going to improve critical thinking and problem solving skills, improve communication and cooperation. We talked about that a lot. More movement, intensity, and enjoyment than many traditional fitness lessons. So, part of my master's thesis years and years ago, I took an adventure racing format. I took this format. I took a traditional mile run format. We did jumping jacks, sit-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, crunches, push-ups. And we reviewed some fitness concepts. We did a mile run. The whole time, students are wearing heart rate monitor, pedometer, and doing a physical activity enjoyment scale after the lesson. We did the same thing in an adventure race. It was a mile run, jumping jacks, curl-ups, push-ups, reviewing fitness concepts, same elements, different format. Again, pedometer, heart rate monitor, physical activity enjoyment scale. Students moved more during the adventure race, 200 more steps during that lesson. Intensity, same amount of time. Intensity, 12 beats more per minute for the adventure race, and students enjoyed it much, much more. Adventure racing is going to improve students' ways of showing appreciation, trust, acceptance, and respect toward each other as they stay together in teams and accept each other's ability levels. It's going to increase knowledge and skills as they review those concepts. You, as a teacher, have an opportunity to assess student movement skills, knowledge, fitness, and cooperative skills during the race. They have an opportunity to assess themselves and reflect and assess their teammates as well. And the biggest benefit is they're going to improve fitness while having fun. So there are actually some free lessons for you and adventure races for you on supportrealteachers.org if you want to check that out. If you go to this website and search adventure racing, you'll find them here. Look for the Spartan obstacle races. Here you have a setting up a Spartan adventure race. Gives you 7 steps to set up a race, how you go about doing it. Then there's a task card here where you can design your own. It's in a Word doc, so you can actually just go and plug in what you want right there. If you look through here, there are actually examples of elementary races you can do. There's 2 elementary races, 2 middle school races, and 2 high school adventure races that are already set out for you based on real life Spartan adventure races. There are Shape America standards that are being reached are right there listed. The equipment that's needed, the setup is spelled out for you. The lesson introduction is ready to go. The stations are set up for you. And then the task card is already made as well, along with the layout for what the race will look like. Then there's station signs right here already made too. You can find fitness obstacle stations here, already ready to go for your adventure race. And then Spartan obstacle stations as well that are specific to Spartan adventure racing. Because then you can always explain to the students that, hey, this is something you can do in the real world as well. This is a real thing. So kind of cool. Definitely recommend you check out those resources right there. They're all totally free, which is always awesome. All right, to learn more, Adventure Racing Activities for Fun and Fitness. This is a book that I wrote with Katrina Himberg, published by Human Kinetics several years ago. There are task cards in here. Assessments in here you can use with adventure racing, lots of different obstacles, ideas, and layouts all set up there for you. Adventure Racing Core, Non-Traditional Approach to the Physical Education lesson, appears in Joperd, August 2006. Back in the beginning, there's an article on adventure racing there that gives you the basic format. Spark Middle School Physical Education Curriculum, 2011. That middle school curriculum, almost every unit has an adventure race in it. To kind of review different movement skills. If you go to supportrealteachers.org, like I said, plenty of free resources for you there. You can always email me directly if you're doing an adventure race, you run into some kind of problem, you have a question, just email me. Let me know. I'll get back to you. If you do an adventure race and it goes awesome, let me know that too. I love to hear those things. I always like getting those emails. And like I said, I've had folks reach out to me. Adventure racing is being done everywhere now. There's someone in the UK doing it on the recreational level, actually, with kids using this format all around the country. And the more folks do it, the better and better it gets. And that's because the folks giving it a try and making it better, make it work for them. And so I always learn from them. And then, it's just a great thing to keep spreading around. So if it works out well, let me know that too. But if you have problems, let me know that too, because maybe we can come up with a solution. Twitter. At the PE Challenge, a weekly challenge that helps advocate for us as a profession. promoting quality physical education and a positive image of physical educators so that hopefully we are valued where we should be valued. I'm tired of all the negative stereotypes in the media and the movies and television about PE teachers, and we know we're much better than that. And so this is just kind of a challenge to kind of help promote that piece. Also, you can check out my brand new website, www.thepechallenge.com, where you can find all kinds of resources, adventure racing, games, distance learning resources, if you're interested in presenting, consulting, any of those kind of other pieces having to do those things. Information is there as well. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for sitting and listening about adventure racing activities and adventure racing core. I hope you enjoyed it. You got something out of it. And thank you. Enjoy the adventure.
Thank you for watching this session from EPEW 2020. We're saving the next few minutes for you to ask those final questions before we log off. If you have any questions afterwards, please reach out to the presenter or send a message to EPEW through our website.
Don't forget that we have more amazing sessions going on. Head over to our website, epew-cp.weebly.com, and look for the virtual EPEW 2020 tab.
You can also access the presentations on YouTube by typing in the hashtag EPEW 2020.
We'd like to thank the amazing EPEW committee for all their hard work over this past year. This event would not have been possible without their dedication, commitment, and volunteering their time to providing high-quality professional development.
Don't forget about our other events like our socials and share times. Links can be found on our website.
Remember our motto for EPEW, come to learn, leave as family. Thank you for joining our family today.